I think a really interesting topic in language learning is how much should we be handwriting? Everyone's take is different, and I want to give my 2 cents on the topic today. Me, personally, I do quite a lot of handwriting, and that is influenced by which languages I learn, how my brain works, how much time I have, and it's going to be different for you if these factors are different. Your routine is going to look a little different from mine, and because of that, how much you use handwriting will change. One positive of using handwriting is that it helps me remember things more easily. Once it's gone through the wrist movement, I think it settles in my brain a little bit better. It's just personally, that's what I found. When I type something, I might forget it after a day or two, but the forgetting curve is just a little bit slower when I originally hand wrote that. Another positive is that, so if your target language uses a different script than your native language, I think handwriting could really help you remember those new characters, especially for something that uses Chinese characters like Chinese languages or Japanese or maybe Korean if you really want to get serious. Those languages benefit from you handwriting them because you internalize the writing a little bit more than if you just read it on a page. I can say personally for me, when I handwrite my kanji, which is the writing system derived from Chinese, I remember it much better when it's physically gone through my hand. If I just quickly look over it, I might miss an important detail that I would not have missed if I handwrote it. Especially for those really complicated characters, I think you might miss a detail if you just read it on the page. Think about how you know how a penny looks, but you probably can't recall all the small details of a penny. That is the same with some writing systems. Overall, you know how it should look, but if somebody told you to draw it right now, to write it right now, you might not be able to do that. Another positive thing is that handwriting is just aesthetically pleasing. Even if you have bad handwriting, I think it's really nice to look at a page that you wrote with a very beautiful pen, and it just feels more satisfying than having a beautiful document. I think another positive about handwriting is that you have no alt codes to memorize. I think when I'm typing Swedish on my computer, I spend so much time using code 0228, 0246, 0229 because they're used so often. But when I'm writing, it takes milliseconds longer than O. Typing O with an umlaut takes maybe 2 seconds. And it can get a little complicated if you know a few languages with quite a few alt codes to memorize. And then the worst thing is when there's a capital and I just cannot remember those alt codes. You know, typing on the phone is a little better because you can at least hold the button and all of the accents appear. But on every keyboard, there's some combination you have to press to get some accent. Not like that with handwriting. Well, there's also some negatives about handwriting, and I don't want to hide that. Cursive scripts and print scripts could be very different, and you might not prepare yourself for that if you handwrite so much. It might be a little overwhelming if you have to memorize cursive forms and print forms. I'm thinking of a few kanji that I've learned that actually have a pretty significant difference between the typed form and the handwritten form. Another bad thing about handwriting is that it's less efficient than typing. Of course, I mentioned that about alt codes, but for some other languages, that's not a problem. Especially with Asian languages where you have a phonetic keyboard that creates logographic characters, that's going to be much faster than handwriting that. And of course, even with Latin script, it's much faster to hit a key than to write letter A. Even if A is so simple, it's faster to type it. Another negative is that handwritten forms don't have a digital form, which you're going to need if you're going to use a dictionary. I don't think anybody uses paper dictionaries anymore, so if you're going to use an online dictionary, you're already going to type it, so it might become redundant to handwrite things. And not everybody has all the time in the world to handwrite. For me, when I'm studying languages, I'm not too pressed for time, so I don't mind handwriting, but if someone is really busy, that might be an issue. What's my personal take about handwriting then? I really like handwriting for slow learning, collecting the information originally. When I first encounter a word, I prefer to handwrite it in all of the languages I know. Later, I'm probably going to digitize that when I make Anki cards, and that balance is best for me because I slowly learn that and slowly feel that word going through my hand when I'm writing it, but also I digitize it. I'm even going over it a second time, which is already some good review. Even before I get the Anki card, I've reviewed it a little bit. For other people, I recognize that digital only can be a strategy that works. Maybe those people really need speed. Maybe those people come from a language that uses the Latin script and their target language also uses the Latin script, so there's not much to practice. I think this is gonna be significantly different for people who learn languages with a different script. Maybe they're learning a South Asian language, maybe an East Asian language. I think in those cases, most people probably should put some effort into handwriting. But if you're a German speaker learning English, I don't see a reason to worry about handwriting so much. If I were to compare me as a native English speaker, I would say Chinese requires more time for handwriting than Spanish. I don't think I would dedicate any time for handwriting in Spanish. So do your thing. It doesn't really matter. We're all gonna die someday, so just choose one. I'm curious what some of you think. Do you try to handwrite the target languages you're learning? Do you think it's more valuable to have digital copies and type them where you can copy and paste? Or do you think it's more valuable to slowly really look at that word by handwriting it? Well, that's that on that. Thank you for watching. Y'all know you can find me on social media. I have a website where I talk about language related things. So I'll see you for a new video next week. All right, so bye-bye.